Most people will never become rich. Not because they are stupid, not because they are unlucky, not because the world is against them, but because they are afraid. Afraid of losing, afraid of failing, afraid of judgment, afraid of uncertainty, afraid of taking risks. And fear quietly destroys more dreams than failure ever could. Right now, millions of people are waking up to alarm clocks they hate, dragging themselves into jobs they secretly want to escape, living the exact same week, again and again and again, until one day they wake up old, still waiting, still hoping, still telling themselves, maybe one day my life will change. But deep down, it never changes. Because comfort is seductive. Comfort whispers lies. It tells people, stay safe, don't risk too much, play it smart, be realistic, don't dream too big. And slowly, that comfort becomes a prison. The modern world has trained people to worship security. Go to school, get a safe job, pay bills, avoid risk, repeat. Most people are not building lives, they're building cages. Because the truth nobody wants to admit is this: every extraordinary life requires extraordinary risk. Every empire, every business, every fortune, every powerful person. At some point, they risked everything, while average people waited for certainty. And certainty is the addiction keeping millions broke. Because life rewards movement, not hesitation. The people who dominate this world are not always the smartest. They're usually the people willing to move while everyone else is afraid. And that is what this video is about. Not motivation, reality. The brutal psychological truth about risk. Why comfort destroys ambition. Why fear creates poverty. Why most people stay trapped forever. And why your future depends on your ability to move toward uncertainty. Because if you spend your entire life avoiding risk, you may survive, but you will never truly live. Chapter 1. The fear that controls humanity. Human beings are survival machines. Your brain was never designed to make you rich. It was designed to keep you alive. Thousands of years ago, risk could mean death. A wrong decision could get you killed. So the human brain evolved to avoid uncertainty, avoid danger, avoid rejection, avoid pain. And even though the modern world has changed, your brain still operates using ancient survival instincts. That's why people stay in toxic jobs. That's why people remain in unhappy relationships. That's why people tolerate average lives, because certainty feels safer than possibility. Even when certainty is miserable, the average person would rather suffer in familiarity than risk discomfort for growth. Think about that. People willingly stay trapped in lives they hate simply because uncertainty scares them more. And society reinforces this fear from childhood. As children, people are taught obedience before confidence. Sit down. Be realistic. Stop dreaming. Follow instructions. Don't fail. Don't embarrass yourself. School systems reward compliance, not courage. Employees are rewarded for predictability, not rebellion. Most people spend their entire lives training themselves to become safe. Safe workers, safe thinkers, safe consumers. And eventually, they lose the ability to take risks entirely. That is why so many people secretly admire successful individuals, because courage is rare. When people see someone starting a business, quitting a job, building something ambitious, traveling alone, investing heavily, part of them feels inspired, and another part feels threatened, because bold action exposes their own fear. This is why average people often attack ambitious people, not because ambition is wrong, but because ambition reminds them of the risks they never took. Fear creates criticism. Weakness attacks courage. People who never move in life become experts at explaining why movement is dangerous. You might fail. What if it doesn't work? Be careful. Don't lose what you already have. But here's the irony. The people warning you about risk are usually trapped in lives they don't even enjoy. And somehow, society treats them like wise advisors. The modern world is filled with deeply unhappy people pretending safety is success. Yet if you study every powerful person in history, you'll notice something. They all moved toward uncertainty. Entrepreneurs risked stability. Investors risked money. Creators risked judgment. Leaders risked failure. Explorers risked death. Risk has always been the entrance fee for greatness, and comfort has always been the hiding place of mediocrity. Chapter 2. The System People. Modern society does not truly want independent thinkers. Independent people are difficult to control. A person who thinks freely, acts boldly, and takes risks becomes dangerous. Because that person stops depending on the system. The system prefers predictability. Predictable workers, predictable consumers, predictable lives. Think about the average life path society promotes. Go to school, memorize information, get good grades, get a stable job, work for 40 years, retire exhausted. Very little of this path teaches ownership. Very little teaches freedom. Most of it teaches dependence. Dependence on employers, dependence on salaries, dependence on approval. And the moment someone steps outside that path, society becomes uncomfortable. Because risk threatens the illusion that safety is the highest goal in life. Look around. Millions of people hate Mondays. That alone should terrify you. Entire populations emotionally collapse every Sunday night because they are returning to lives they secretly don't want. Yet they continue, because certainty feels safer than possibility. The average employee trades freedom for predictable income, and over time, that trade becomes identity. People begin defining themselves by survival, not purpose, not ambition, not growth, just survival. And survival mode slowly destroys human potential. A person stuck in survival rarely thinks long-term. They become reactive, emotionally exhausted, fear-driven. This is why so many people spend money emotionally, why they chase distractions, why they seek entertainment constantly. Because deep down, they know something feels wrong. But instead of changing their lives, they numb themselves. Modern culture profits from distraction. Distracted people consume more. Weak people obey more. Fearful people question less. And comfortable people rarely revolt. That's why risk matters. Risk disrupts control. The moment someone starts betting on themselves, their entire psychology changes. They stop waiting. They stop asking permission. They stop accepting average. Risk forces growth, because uncertainty reveals who you truly are. Chapter 3. Comfort is silent death. Comfort never destroys people immediately. That's what makes it dangerous. It destroys them slowly, quietly. One comfortable decision at a time. One delayed dream at a time. One excuse at a time. One wasted year at a time. Until eventually, a person wakes up and realizes they became average by accident. Comfort is seductive because it feels harmless. Sleeping in feels harmless. Avoiding difficult conversations feels harmless. Scrolling for hours feels harmless. Postponing goals feels harmless. But repeated comfort compounds into weakness. The modern world is designed to make people comfortable. Unlimited entertainment, instant food, instant dopamine, instant validation. People no longer need discipline to survive, and because of that, many people never develop discipline at all. Weakness is now normalized. People celebrate laziness. They glorify distraction. They joke about procrastination. And then they wonder why they feel empty. Because human beings were never built for endless comfort. Growth requires pressure. Strength requires resistance. Confidence requires overcoming difficulty. But modern culture teaches people to avoid discomfort at all costs. And that mindset quietly destroys ambition. The uncomfortable truth is this. Most people already know what they should be doing. They simply refuse to endure temporary discomfort. They know they should study, build skills, exercise, save money, take opportunities, start businesses, speak confidently, network, learn, take action. But action requires discomfort. And comfort addicts cannot tolerate discomfort, so they stay stuck. Then, eventually, they begin resenting people who escaped, because nothing irritates average people more than witnessing discipline. Discipline exposes excuses, and excuses are the emotional currency of weak people. Chapter 4. The moment risk changes everything. Every successful person has a moment where comfort ends, a moment where fear collides with ambition, a moment where they either move or remain average forever. That moment rarely feels glamorous. Usually, it feels terrifying. Because real growth feels uncertain. The entrepreneur launching a business, the creator posting their first video, the investor risking savings, the man walking away from security. None of them feel fully ready. And that's the secret nobody talks about. Powerful people act before certainty arrives. Weak people wait for confidence. Strong people build confidence through action. That single difference changes entire lives. Most people think successful individuals are fearless. Wrong. They simply learned how to move while afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is movement despite fear. And every time someone takes action under uncertainty, their identity changes. They stop seeing themselves as victims. They stop needing permission. They begin trusting themselves. That is where power begins. Not money, not status, self-trust. Because the person who trusts themselves becomes difficult to control. And that is exactly why risk transforms people. Chapter 5. The pain of regret. There is something worse than failure. Regret. Failure hurts temporarily. Regret haunts people forever. One day, most people will grow old, and many of them will quietly realize something horrifying. They never truly lived. They survived. They obeyed. They stayed safe, but they never became who they were capable of becoming. Imagine spending decades watching other people build extraordinary lives, while secretly wondering what would have happened if you had been brave enough to try. That pain destroys people internally. And the saddest part is, most regret is not caused by failure. It's caused by hesitation. The business never started. The opportunity never taken. The dream constantly delayed. The risk avoided. Because human beings have an incredible ability to justify comfort in the present. But time eventually removes those illusions. At the end of life, people rarely regret the risks they took. They regret the risks they were too afraid to take. And that realization should terrify you. Because time moves regardless of your fear. Years disappear quickly. One day becomes 1 month. 1 month becomes 1 year. 1 year becomes a decade. And suddenly, your life becomes the result of repeated hesitation. That is why action matters. Not because success is guaranteed, but because stagnation guarantees nothing changes. Chapter 6. Why the rich move differently. Wealthy people are not always smarter than everyone else, but they usually think differently about uncertainty. Average people ask, "What if I fail?" Powerful people ask, "What happens if I never try?" That single mindset shift changes everything. The rich understand something most people never realize. Risk is unavoidable. Even playing safe is a risk. Working one job for 40 years is a risk. Depending entirely on one income source is a risk. Ignoring opportunity is a risk. Staying average is a risk. But society only labels bold action as dangerous. That is psychological conditioning. Because the system benefits when people fear independence. Study wealthy individuals closely. Most of them became successful because they moved early. They invested early, built early, learned early, failed early. They understood that speed matters. Opportunity rewards movement, and hesitation destroys momentum. The average person spends years thinking. The wealthy person spends years executing. That difference compounds. While average people endlessly consume information, strong people build. They understand a brutal truth. Action creates clarity, not overthinking. You do not think your way into confidence. You move your way into confidence. Every uncomfortable action increases self-belief. Every avoided action increases fear. And eventually, people become prisoners of their own hesitation. That's why risk is not only financial. Risk is psychological. Every time you choose courage, you strengthen your identity. Every time you choose comfort, you weaken it. And over time, your identity becomes your future. Chapter 7. Why most people never escape average lives. Most people are not trapped by lack of opportunity. They are trapped by patterns. The same thoughts, the same habits, the same fears, the same excuses. Every year they promise themselves change, and every year, they repeat the same life. Because transformation requires destruction. To build a powerful future, you must destroy weak habits, destroy weak thinking, destroy emotional dependence, destroy comfort addiction. And most people refuse to let go of who they currently are. That is why growth feels painful. Growth threatens identity. A lazy person must stop identifying as lazy. A weak person must stop identifying as weak. A fearful person must stop worshiping safety. And that process is emotionally violent. Because becoming powerful requires separation. Separation from old environments, old mindsets, old people, old behaviors. Many people secretly know this, but they stay the same because transformation feels lonely. Average environments punish ambition. The moment someone begins changing, weak people become uncomfortable. Friends mock discipline. Family questions risk. Society criticizes boldness. Because average people feel safer when everyone stays average together. That is why escaping mediocrity requires emotional independence. You must become comfortable being misunderstood, comfortable being doubted, comfortable moving differently. Because the crowd rarely understands vision. And if you constantly need approval, you will never become powerful. Chapter 8. Pain is the price of greatness. Every meaningful life contains pain. The difference is, successful people choose productive pain. Weak people choose destructive pain. Discipline hurts, but regret hurts more. Learning hurts, but ignorance destroys lives. Building a business is stressful, but financial dependence slowly crushes the soul. Everything costs something, and life constantly asks one question. Which pain are you willing to tolerate? The gym hurts, so does weakness. Saving money hurts, so does poverty. Taking risks hurts, so does wasted potential. Most people spend their lives trying to eliminate discomfort completely. That is impossible. Life will always contain struggle. The only choice is whether your struggle creates growth or decay. And powerful people understand this deeply. They stop viewing discomfort as punishment. They begin viewing discomfort as transformation. Because pressure reveals strength. That is why difficult experiences often create extraordinary people. Pain sharpens awareness. Failure creates wisdom. Responsibility builds confidence. Adversity creates resilience. The strongest individuals are rarely produced by easy lives, and if you study your own life honestly, you will realize your greatest growth probably came from your hardest moments, not your most comfortable ones. Chapter 9. The moment you bet on yourself. There comes a moment in certain people's lives where something changes internally. They stop waiting, stop blaming, stop hoping someone will rescue them, and they begin taking ownership. That moment changes everything, because ownership creates power. The person who accepts responsibility for their future becomes dangerous. Not dangerous to society, dangerous to limitation, dangerous to weakness, dangerous to mediocrity. That person no longer waits for confidence. They move anyway. And movement creates momentum. Momentum creates belief. Belief creates identity. Identity creates destiny. This is why betting on yourself matters. Not because success becomes guaranteed, but because self-respect begins growing. Every bold action sends a message to your subconscious. I trust myself. And the person who trusts themselves can survive uncertainty. That is real freedom, not luxury, not money, internal certainty. Because once someone develops that level of self-belief, very little can control them. They stop fearing rejection, stop fearing failure, stop fearing judgment. And once fear loses power, possibility expands. That is why some people completely transform their lives in a few years, not because luck suddenly appeared, but because courage finally did. Final chapter. Safe people are forgotten. History rarely remembers people who played safe. The world remembers builders, creators, risk-takers, leaders, people willing to move toward uncertainty while others hesitated. Every extraordinary life begins with discomfort. Every empire begins with risk. Every transformation begins with action. And yet, most people will continue choosing comfort, because comfort feels easier today. But easy choices create hard lives, and hard choices create powerful lives. That is the hidden law most people never understand. Your future is built by repeated decisions. The decision to move, the decision to act, the decision to endure discomfort, the decision to believe in yourself before evidence exists. That is what separates average people from powerful people. One group waits, the other moves. One group seeks certainty, the other creates opportunity. One group spends years explaining why something is impossible, the other spends years building. And eventually, those differences become entire lifestyles. One person grows old wondering, what if? The other grows powerful because they dared to try. So the question is not whether risk is dangerous. Everything in life contains danger. The real question is, what kind of pain are you willing to live with? The temporary pain of courage or the permanent pain of regret? Because in the end, life rewards movement, not hesitation. And if you spend your entire life avoiding risk, you may survive, but you will never truly become free.